Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we kept going with the Void Crusade, had some rough patches, but we're on the way out at this point. We've only got 4 missions left, and those will be easy. So we'll start off with this covert mission. Let's put some stuff on it, why not? Completely manageable. Damage bonus might hurt a little, but it's fine. So let's just deal with the elephant in the room. FanFest happened, and they announced their new FPS game. And that's where the good news ends. Because it's a PvPvE shooter. So it's an extraction shooter. And I'm not even mad, I'm just disappointed. Because it is... Okay, so, best way I can put this. If I wanted to play Tarkov, I'd play Tarkov. If I wanted to play sci-fi Tarkov, I'd play Marauders, or I would have played the Cycle Frontier. If I want to wait a little bit, I can play Dead Drop, or I can also play Off the Grid. What makes an EVE extraction shooter special? Genuinely. Everybody's gonna say like, oh, well, the tie-in to the universe. That's not gonna be a big deal. It'll be what? Economy? And I can guarantee it's gonna go to hell. Full stop. That game is gonna go screeching into hell. Because they'll probably do what they did in Dust and have a conversion rate for ISK. And then people will still farm missions, usually either actual missions, or they'll do PvE stuff, get a ton of ISK, and then pay the conversion rate and send it over. And barring skill point requirements, people are just gonna buy the best gear. And like every other extraction shooter, it'll start off fine, and it's gonna go to hell. Because people get bored, and they just turn it into a full-blown team deathmatch. And I saw articles where the devs are like, oh guys, it's not going to be just a generic first-person shooter. I would rather have a generic first-person shooter set in EVE than a game where it is one game mode that is a trend. We've already had the Cycle Frontier and Hazard Zone die. We will probably have COD DMZ die in the near future. Because when it comes to like Modern Warfare 3, we haven't heard anything about it. So it's kind of safe to assume that mode's probably going to stop being supported. Extraction shooters are a niche thing. The reason any game can do like team deathmatch is because it's a core. That's why things like domination work, because it's a core mode. But I saw people say it, and I gotta agree with it. Hilmar, the president of Crowd Control Productions, loves throwing good money at dumb ideas. And this is just another case of it. I don't like being negative. I don't like shitting on this stuff. But this is trend chasing at its finest. And I don't think it's gonna go well. All they needed to do was make Dust 2. And it would have been fine. Properly flesh out everything. Properly implement drones and stuff. If they wanted to have PvE content, that's doable. If they wanted PvPvE and have a third faction interrupt fights, that's fine. That's doable. But it's just goofy as hell when they're like, oh, your actions will shape all this stuff and you're going to have a big influence on EVE. You're telling me a bunch of 4-man squads just ganking each other is going to have some big influence. And then there's the question, if it's an extraction shooter, are they going to do seasons? Because every other one does it because they all acknowledge the game's economies are unsustainable. Tarkov has to reset. Dark and Darker had to reset. That battle sector, whatever it was, the other space one I forgot existed until this moment, where you're escaping like a crumbling ship, they're gonna have resets. Everyone has resets, because otherwise you get the guys who get in early, farm up a ton of money, ton of gear, and they just stay there. And then they either get bored and leave, which takes your money with it, or they just make it hell for every new player, and the new players quit because they don't want to deal with getting farmed by guys who have like level 5 plates and eat 9mm for breakfast. I just have no faith, because my big question is always, what are they doing that is unique? And everything I saw for, and I hate the name, Vanguard. Cool, you picked the name of the most recent, or like the last COD that was god-awful. Arguably the worst Call of Duty that's been made. And that was the name you ran with. That doesn't give me a lot of good vibes here. But it's like, you made this, and this is the best you could do. I want to know who in the office is like, yeah, just make it an extraction shooter. Those are popping. That's totally got sustain. Terrible plan. Absolutely dreadful. Alright, let's get that skill point in quick. Hey! Another point of damage. Anything worthwhile? No, not seeing anything. I'm just disappointed. I had said to a friend of mine, I've waited years for a new EVE shooter. Waiting for a well-done sequel to Dust, and this is what we get. And the sad part is, it's just like Starfield. You have all the people right at the beginning going, oh, this is gonna be the greatest thing ever, oh my god, I'm gonna spend 1 billion hours and throw $1 trillion at this. This game can't fail. Give it a month. It's gonna be available in like a beta in December apparently. I'm not even gonna bother. But give it a month and people already start going, okay, I'm bored of this. Because part of the fun in Dust was knowing you could do territory wars, and actually, well, I guess there was like the faction war stuff. Then, yeah, you could fight for actual land and build stuff on it, and there was the feeling of more going on than just whatever's right there in the moment. And I had to laugh because some people were complaining about Dust, like, oh, good, I used to die and lose all my money because I'd have to get pushed back to like militia gear because I'd lose like 50,000 every death and I'd run out of gear. And I'm like, so you suck. Why were you running gear you couldn't afford to replace? And that's kind of the whole point. You know, why would you expect a fair fight if you can spend nothing with BPOs and get infinite gear compared to someone who has to spend 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 ISK on a loadout? Why should you have a fair fight? You lose nothing and have everything to gain, and then the inverse. So it's like the complaints about Dust were just bad. And then they think this is gonna magically be better. Like, people aren't gonna just run in with top gear and shit roll you. People acting like hatchling isn't a thing in extraction shooters. Which, for those who have never heard the term, it's from Tarkov, and hatchling is typically people who run in with no weapon and just a hatchet on them, or a knife, and they try to just hoover up any loot they can find so that they can go sell it, because either their scav run failed, or they're just broke and need money. And I just laugh at the whole thing. Oh, well, people can make alliances. Yeah, no, that's not happening. If there is anything to gain from killing another player, there's going to be no, like, oh yeah, I'll cut a deal and we'll work together on this. No, they're just going to murk you and take whatever. And it looks like, at least what I saw, you can take biomass to heal. So killing players directly contributes to you healing. So prepare to die. People are going to body you just so they have a little extra healing available in case they get jumped. I just wanted Dust 2, man. I was planning, I had everything actually ready. I had the footage all hoovered up. I had everything ready to go. I was starting to work on my Eve video, or my Dust video, because I was planning on doing it right after the announcement of, presumably, the Dust sequel. Kind of be like, hey, here's what the old game was like, guys. In theory, it was to be that was what we're going to get as a sequel, so here's kind of what you should expect. Now, at this point, it's not what we're doing. Now I'm just like, oh, okay. The only thing it might be worthwhile doing is kind of a, this is what they took from you kind of idea. But man, I just wanted that, man. And it's such a bummer just seeing another extraction shooter. It's the Battle Royale cycle again of everybody making them. And as I was saying, I just remembered with the whole issue of seasons, you can't really do a season for Eve. Because if skills are time-based, then people are going to be real pissed because they have to wait to regain old skills if they get reset. Otherwise, if they're not reset, then everybody's just going to rebuy top-tier gear. I just don't see a way where this mode pans out and is a fun and fair experience for anyone. Because the earlier people get in, and the more money they have, the higher chance of them just balling out of control and forming just kill teams. Because we already see that. Look at the top Tarkov streamers. Look at the top, like, DMZ streamers. They'll be like, oh yeah, we're gonna run these missions because we have to. But they don't avoid conflict, they actively hunt people down, not even taking anything, just because they can. Oh well. Shit happens. Just gotta hope someone else comes out with a good shooter. Just a shame because they had a lot of cool stuff. Makes me wish Timegate Studios was still active. The guys who made Section 8. Those were cool games. It's tough to find like videos of them now because they came out like, God, Section 8, the first one came out like 2010, I think, I want to say. It was early enough that YouTube wasn't that big, at least for like gaming content. Wow, he died just easy. But like, it wasn't that big of gaming content, and then Section 8 Prejudice was digital only at the time where nothing was digital only. It's a damn shame. Since this has more or less become the lament of Dust episode, I do want to talk about one thing that I thought was really well done in Dust, and that was the loadouts. The drop suits, the fittings, how, because you had the 4 factions, you had different setups of like, this is more armor based, this is more shield based. Because this is an assault drop suit, it's more focused on this and it gets these bonuses. That was such a cool system that I think you could really transplant to other shooters. Because I think of some of the older, not old, but older CODs like Infinite Warfare, where they had that in Advanced Warfare where they had the variants. Especially Advanced Warfare, because those variants were less of like, hey, here's a perk on the weapon, and more of, here's like increased recoil, but additional magazine size, reduced damage, but higher fire rate, stuff like that. So it shows it's been done before in a way, and it could definitely come back in a non-loot box manner. And it'd be cool. The game wouldn't need to go the EVE route of requiring skills, because you just wouldn't have like proto gear and stuff like that. Because otherwise, if you did, and there wasn't a cost to gear, the only way of balancing, I think, would be to either have longer respawn timers based on what gear is lost, which I don't think is a fun design, or you'd have to do something really strange. Make it like a point buy system, kind of like Star Wars Battlefront. And at that point you're getting into some really funky combos of systems, and the odds of them meshing well gets slimmer and slimmer. But I loved Dust's systems. They were really cool. Some of the stuff like scanning wasn't really fleshed out well enough. I think there was definitely potential, but I think it still needed a lot of work. Because they could have done cool stuff with like UAVs and having skills, having like a personal UAV you see in Modern Warfare, where you would have it up and it would just ping the area around you, and detect guys, or you could have different deployable sensors, but then have it affected by skills, and the players it scans, their skills. So if you're built to jam and all this stuff, and you have like a jammer thing built into your drop suit, you could trigger that and potentially just be completely ignored by a personal UAV. Is it fun? I think it is. Is it balanced? Better than COD with Ghost, where it's just like, yeah, you're completely immune. Have fun. We just hard countered a lot of stuff. And that was the big thing for Dust, was everything you wanted to do had a trade-off. If you used, let's say, a lot of armor, well, you're probably not going to have a lot of shields, and weapons that blow through shields, EMP grenades and the like, are going to just blast through that, and then they're hitting your armor and your health. So you have to go, is that worth it? Is it worth carrying a healing tool, but not a revive syringe? You had to figure out how to build the right drop suits. You didn't put, shields on, or a ton of shields on Minmatar gear, because that was all shield, or all armor based. And your shields were usually pretty bad, and so getting these percent ups on it was essentially moot. Man, I always wanted the PvE stuff to have come out, because they made it seem so cool. Having planetary interaction affected by like rogue drone infestations, dropping a team in to go clear them out, that would have been so cool. And that could have been a system of having like a meter that, depending on mission types you do and the difficulty, you get more or less meter altered. So you could do a couple really tough missions to completely negate the rogue drone infestation, or you could do a bunch of minor missions. The longer you take, or the longer it's left alone, the tougher it gets, and it could kind of tier up into tougher and tougher fights and require more and more investment and having more and more of an effect on planetary interaction. It could have been a very in-depth system. I just hope the EVE players are happy because they finally got what they wanted, their EVE shooter on PC, and it's... like I said, I'll give it a year. Year, maybe 2 years before it's by and large dead. Because, classic little bit of business here. Keep in mind, I took a couple business classes in college, but I know enough about business to know this, and I also talked to a friend of mine who does marketing professionally. But it's market share. You're looking at extraction shooters. Okay, so you got DMZ Tarkov, Hunt Showdown, that Star Sector, I think it is, or no, that's the other space game, Battle Sector, whatever it is, generic named shooter with the collapsing ship. You have that. You have what used to be the player base for Hazard Zone. I assume there's still some, because it's just not supported, but it's still kept online. There's... what else is there? Like Last Light, there's a couple mobile ones. There's Marauders, Dark and Darker, and I'm sure a few I'm missing. all of those are clawing from the same market space, like market cap, market space.
Remarkable.
There's only so many people who play this genre. So they are going to have to claw people from the others, and they're already putting themselves behind the 8 ball, because there's a lot of PC ones, and you're trying to tell people, hey, give up this game you've played for 1 to 5 years and try this new one that's completely untested and maybe just horrendous. It'll be good. Trust me, bro. That's not good. If you went with if you just took generic FPS and said, okay, we're going to be a large-scale combined arms game. Cool. Your market competitors are PlanetSide 2, which is already pretty far gone. Battlefield 2042, which is still in a rough state. COD Ground War. And that's about it. There are minor games like Angels Fall First, but they take up so little of the market that it's negligible. It's, I would argue, single percent numbers. They would have a better chance getting Battlefield players who are jaded from 2042 and want something better, and getting COD Ground War people who tend to, a lot of them, are just ex-Battlefield players who needed something. Or even, you would be able to pull, if you probably did a console launch, you could pull the old mag veterans. The mag vets are still out here. I'm one of them. And they're, before the PlayStation communities shut down, they were still looking for a new game. They were still, just the community alone, it was only a couple thousand people. But you gotta think that was like 8 years after the servers shut down. And they were still hanging around, talking to each other, going, hey, remember this? Man, I wish there was a new game. And I remember constantly seeing people going, hey, what's the new thing that's equivalent to MAG? So it's not like people don't exist, and it's not like that market is oversaturated. But whoever does their market research over at Crowd Control Productions, I get the feeling they looked on Twitch, said, hey, what's the first couple shooters that pop up? They saw Tarkov, they saw COD, and they're like, okay, Tarkov, cool, that. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not praying for Vanguard's downfall, but I am taking bets. And I'm gonna definitely be on the within a year to 2 years, probably. Because that's about as long as Dust really lasted. But that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.